I'm a project coordinator at Good Jobs First. Good Jobs First is a nonpartisan, nonprofit research organization that addresses transparency and accountability of economic development incentives, as well as corporate misconduct. So I will be, in this video, I will be demoing our tax break tracker, which is a database. Let me actually share my screen right now. Okay, so want to know the cost of corporate tax breaks? Visit Tax Break Tracker, a database on tax abatement and foregone revenue reported by state and local governments. And here is my contact information. So tax abatements are reported in government's financial reports, which are backward-looking spending documents. And so the tax break tracker can be found on our webpage at the top menu here. You can also get it through here. This also contains a lot of resources, a lot of stuff that we've written on the subject. So the interface for tax break tracker is quite simple. You select your state and you press search, or you can refine by different types of localities and press search, or you can just go directly select your locality from the list here, which is sorted alphabetically. So let's go with New York. And once you select the state, you see only the localities in that state. Cities and counties, school districts, and we don't have any data for special districts. The data for special districts is very scarce across the country, so we only have a handful of entries. So once you select the state New York, you can press search. And here you get at the New York State page, where we first show you the state level programs, which there are quite a few of them, and they add up to $1.4 billion in foregone revenue or lost revenue. It's basically how much revenue is reduced because of all these economic development incentive programs. And if you click on any one of these, you'll see here more details about this particular program. So the statutory authority, which type of taxes are abated, and the abating jurisdiction. So this is the government body that actually administers the program or enters into the agreements. And in this case, it's actually not New York City, but the state of New York. Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, we're talking about state level programs. I got confused. Ignore what I said just now, because when you go to like the second part, which is tabulated locality and district. So these are the numbers reported by localities within New York. And if we go to New York City, we see certain programs. For example, this first program is administered by the state of New York rather than New York City. And so we call this type of revenue reduction passive, because New York City is passively affected by a different government body. And you get passive revenue losses a lot for school districts because they're usually not the ones entering into the agreements. And so going back to New York City, you see there are a lot of programs and they cost a lot. Just for New York City alone, it's $3.8 billion, which is massive. I think New York City accounted for, of all the known data, New York City probably accounts for a third of all the incentive spending. And on every page you see this, there are these tabs for different years. And if you click on another year, this is the 2018 data, which is 3.5 billion. So 2019 is actually higher. 2017, again, okay, so basically we can see that incentive spending for New York City has been increasing for the past 3 years. Going back to our New York State page, you can also navigate to other localities and districts. We're still in the process of collecting a lot of the 2019 data. So what you get here are usually just the big cities. But if you go back further, say 2017, you get a lot more data. And we have a lot of data for school district because in 2017, we did a really big study on sort of the revenue impact of incentive programs on school districts. And we're updating that study right now. So we already have the 2019, the latest data for school district for some states, which I will show you. So going back to the main search page, let's go to South Carolina because recently we just published a white paper showing massive revenue reduction for school districts in South Carolina. And here you can choose any of your school districts, or you can just not choose any locality and just search by South Carolina. And the state of South Carolina didn't report anything, so we noted it here. But the localities reported quite a bit, but we only have the data for several cities and school districts. This is a list. This is a complete list of school districts that reported these tax abatements. And as you can see, the total is quite massive. And another feature, actually, okay, so one problem that we have with these tax abatement disclosures is that a lot of places don't report. And we don't know why. It could be because they're not complying with the rule, they're just kind of ignoring it, or it could be because they don't have any tax abatements, or because the tax abatements are too small or insignificant for the financials, for the government's financials. So we keep a list of all those localities that didn't report anything, that we've looked at that didn't report anything. Of course, we don't have the bandwidth to look at every single local government in the United States. But out of the thousands that we've looked at, many of them didn't report anything, so we keep them in this master list of non-reporters, what we call non-reporters, and they're organized by year. So you can filter by like the more recent years and see which jurisdiction didn't report anything. So the ones that don't report anything will not end up in this database. So when you go search for it, you're not going to find it. Let me show you a different state, so Pennsylvania. Oh, and if there's any like locality of interest, just let me know, Jamie, and I will.
Thanks, I appreciate it. One thing just to clarify, make sure I'm following along. So if a locality is not reporting, and it's one you checked in with, are you thinking that that's because it's just, either they don't do it or it's very small, or do you think that includes some that just don't want to report it?
Yeah, I think we already have evidence that there are places where we know there to be tax abatements leading to lost revenue, but they didn't report. Of course, those cases are hard to track. We have a handful of those, but that's proof enough that is a phenomenon that's happening. And I will show you the 50 state tabulation in a moment, and where you will see states vary a lot in their in the reporting level, in the percentage of local governments or the number of local governments that report. So we definitely think there's something going on there. And here in each state, there's a link at the top where you can get a file of localities that didn't report anything. So for just like the state that you chose, so in this case, Pennsylvania. And Philadelphia is one of the largest abating cities, $145 million for just the one city. And of course, as you know, with other states, you can navigate to different years where we have more data. And so if we look at the 50, what the 50 state, so there are two tables that I want to bring to your attention. First, this is just the tabulation of all the numbers we have so far. For 2019 here, we got all 50 states, and the first column is the revenue loss reported by the state governments. So these are state level programs. And then second column, we have revenue loss reported by select localities. Of course, these are the localities that we looked at that reported something. And number of reporting localities currently record, basically this is how many local governments reported and added up to this amount. And so for
curiosity, if a state doesn't report anything at all, is that more likely to be because they really don't have anything, like Alaska? Or again, is it states just not toning up the information?
I mean, it's possible. I think for Georgia had like 3 programs, which it technically reported them, but it just didn't provide any numbers because of confidentiality reasons. So for Georgia, we know it's very problematic because those programs are like for mega projects, so they're probably huge. But because of their confidentiality laws, and we can't get at the numbers. And California stated that this new accounting rules of the tax abatement disclosure, which went into effect in 2017, California stated that the rule did not have any impact on the state's financial statements, and we don't know what that really means. And yes, Alaska's a special case. With South Carolina, we don't know what's going on. We do know that the state does have programs, but we don't know why it didn't report anything. And so for South Carolina, we have a whole bunch of locality data, which you saw a moment ago with the school districts. And this will be, the numbers will be a lot higher as we continue to gather our data for 2019. For 2017, as you can see, we have many more records. And so this just gives you a sense of like what this number really means, like the revenue, total revenue loss reported by all the localities that we've looked at.
So I guess I think I'm getting this, but the way to look at this is, it's it's an undercount. It's a more than this number, but it gives people at least some sense of what's happening in different places around the country. Is that more or less right?
Yeah, exactly. So this is definitely only a partial, probably a very small partial total. So, but this number gives you an idea of how much data we actually have, and it may be possible to extrapolate, but that's more complicated. And so if we go to, let's go back to our homepage and go to this, what we call GASB 77 Resource Center, which contains a lot of great resources that we've compiled, that we've created on this tax abatement disclosures thing. And so one of the things that we did using 2018 data is to get at an estimate for how many like local governments are actually reporting tax abatements. And so of course this is not, we didn't look at all of them. These are just this column is the number of financial reports that we looked at. And out of this number, these are the ones that actually reported some kind of tax abatements. So, generally speaking, more counties and cities report than school districts. So in the school district, you see a lot of zeros. And for some states, we know that there are either school district taxes are shielded from abatements, or that school districts, they are component units, so their finances are not independent. And but there are a lot of states where there's no reason why, like we can't find a reason for why there's no reporting, like for Florida, for Colorado, and Tennessee. Whereas by comparison, there are some states that did really great job, like New York, South Carolina, Michigan, and Iowa, which is almost at least like 70% of reporting rate. And if the rest 20-something% of local governments didn't report anything, we can reasonably believe that they really don't have anything to report, because the state oversight is so good that we trust the quality of their disclosures. Whereas some states, we just don't know what's going on there and we're in the process of trying to find out by reaching out to some of the people. And that brings me to another resource that we have, which is what we call the GASB 77 state roadmaps, where we wrote for each state a sort of summary information about who is in charge, about how like the disclosures are sort of implemented. So for example, let's do Ohio. And these are all PDF documents. And we answer some of these like common questions, like who in the state government is most likely to influence GASB 77 disclosure, because we believe that this the state controller or auditor it plays a key role in how many local governments actually report. And we also have like other information about, for example, which organizations were in support of GASB 77 when it was being proposed. And in here we have information about how many local governments are required by law to follow the generally accepted accounting principles. So which means that they should comply with all the GASB statements. And is there a state office that collects all the CAFRs or financial reports from their local governments? And just a lot of useful information, so that if you notice that a data for a particular state is like slim pickings, you can sort of find out from this document who to reach out to. Let me see if I've forgotten anything. Oh, and GASB 77 Chronicles are where we keep all of our blogs on tax avoidance disclosures. Most recently, I wrote these three blogs dealing specifically with the issue of compliance and poor disclosure. So for example, this blog talks about, basically presents sort of the evidence I was talking about, where we have places where we know there are revenue being lost, but they're not reporting anything. 9 common reasons that governments decline to provide tax avoidance disclosures. And the states that are missing a lot of data, we're wondering if the state officials are like just falling asleep at the wheel and not enforcing compliance. And we have some older blogs on just basically like analyzing the data. And here we have more analysis. For example, 100 largest cities, 100 largest counties, the largest cities in each state. For example, these are the numbers, and some of the files haven't been published at the time when this was written. And I think that's it, unless I'm.
That's really
helpful. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that that's really helpful. I have a much better understanding of what's there now. Thank you.